Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 10 of the series of tutorial on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this tutorial, we're gonna take a look on how to implement Composer namespaces inside our plugin. If you don't know anything about Composer, Composer is basically a package manager for PHP. So if you go to composer.org, it looks like really old and outdated. In fact, is not. It's actually really modern, and you should definitely use it. If you're planning to be a PHP developer, you should start getting acquainted with Composer. What Composer does is basically gives you access, a dynamic access to all the libraries that you want to use or you could use in order to build better PHP scripts. In our case, what we're going to use about Composer is the Autoload that will gives us the ability to use namespaces in order to remove all these stuff that we're doing here, all these require ones, include ones, require ones, or blah blah blah. We can completely remove these things by using Composer Autoload and specifying just the name of the class to reference a file, and it's gonna be pretty awesome. So first of all, go to getcomposer.org, download and install Composer in your machine, and then let's get started with this tutorial. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to define a Composer project. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but sometimes in some GitHub repository or in some project, you could see something like in the list of files, some file called composer.json. That JSON file is the actual DNA of your PHP project. And in order to create a file like that, we have to do it through the terminal. So let's access our terminal and let's point to the directory where our plugin is. In my case, is Alicat plugin. After you install Composer, you should be able to do Composer init and press enter. We're gonna get prompt with wizard tutorial or a guided tutorial in order to set up our composer.json file. And some of this stuff, because we defined our information in the PHP file, all the comments, package name and stuff like that, automatically Composer is pretty smart and can give us some autocomplete in square brackets. And if we like this, we can just press enter, or we can write some custom things. So in my case, package name vendor/name, it's perfect. Let's press enter. The second one is the description. You can write whatever you want. Awesome starter plugin example, something like that. The author, yes, it recognizes everything. It's amazing. Let's press enter. Minimum stability, I'll say that this is a dev stability. Package type, this is just a project. It's not a library, meta package as a Composer plugin. A license, let's specify GPL, but you can specify Apache, MIT, whatever license you want. Define the dependencies. In this case, we should, if you have a really complex project that requires a lot of dependencies, you should specify here your dependencies. Composer is pretty good because it gives you the ability to search for the dependencies if you don't know the name. But in our case, we just need the built-in Composer Autoload that doesn't require any package, and this is awesome. So let's specify no, we don't want any dependencies, and we don't want any dev dependencies. So that's another thing. No, it's completely empty. It's basically really straightforward, and we can say that here we have all the recap of what we define in our composer.json. Are we satisfied? Let's say yes, and there you go. Now in our plugin folder, we're gonna see a composer.json file automatically generated for us. If we open it, we're gonna have all the information that we specify during the tutorial to generate Composer. Here, the thing that we have to do, we have to specify the auto-loading option in order for us to use the namespaces and auto-load those files without requiring it. In order to use the autoload, it's really simple. Let's put a comma at the end of the curly brackets of the require. In a new line, let's add in the double quotes, autoload, and then column, curly brackets. And inside the curly brackets, as a parameter, we need to specify the attribute PSR4. And the PSR4, probably you heard about PSR2, PSR4, and blah, blah, blah. These are all PHP conventions, PHP scripting convention that allows us to use specific PHP functionalities and features and autocomplete and hinting, code fixers, all this kind of stuff. It's not really necessary right now, so I'm not gonna explain you what a PSR is, but Let's write PSR4 because we're going to use the code convention PSR4. And inside the code convention PSR4, we need to specify what's the unique identifier that we want to use for our plugin every time we reference our plugins folder. In my case, I want to just use inc, because whatever, you can specify your name, you can specify the name of the plugin, the name of the author. In my case, I want to specify inc, and then // this is really important. Outside the double quotes, we can put a column, and then we need to specify this inc unique name. Which folder does it refer to? In our case, or in my case, it refers to the inc folder of my plugin directory. So I need to specify dot to say that basic dir search for the inc folder. That's why I called it inc, because my folder is called inc, and it's easier to remember, it's more consistent and whatever. That's it. That's the only thing that we have to do. After we did that, let's save it. Let's go back in our terminal, and at this point, we can easily type composer install. Automatically, the script composer will recognize that we have a composer.json file in our directory, and it's gonna generate a vendor folder that you can find here in your directory with the file that we required. We didn't require any package, any dependencies. We just said activate the autoload. So automatically composer generated the autoload file that has this gibberish in it. We don't know what it is, but if we access the composer folder and we access the autoload psr4.php file, you can see here that look what it's doing, composer. Automatically it's returning an array with the inc unique name that we specify, pointing to our base directory inc folder. And we don't have to manually edit this file. Absolutely, this file shouldn't be touched. If you need to update stuff, you can simply go into the composer and say, if you don't want to use inc anymore, you want to use your custom name or like Alex as a base unique identifier, you update the composer.json, you go back in the terminal and you say, composer, dump the autoload, dump-autoload. Set enter. Composer automatically regenerates the autoload file, and if we open again composer psr4, now we have the Alex unique name instead of the inc. Does it make sense? I'm gonna go back to inc because I like inc is more consistent, and then composer dump autoload. So awesome. So as I said, we don't have to touch the composer files here. Absolutely, we don't have to manually edit these files. Everything is managed through the composer.json with just one simple parameter because it's the only thing that we need. And when you need to publish this package, this plugin, a theme, if a theme is holding this, if the user doesn't have the ability to hit composer install in the terminal, you should include the vendor folder with the composer package just because it's necessary and we're gonna use it. But let's continue. So now that we define composer with the autoload and we say that the PSR4 should automatically load the inc folder in this inc unique identifier, we can say that in our AliCAD plugin, we can specify that we want to use the autoload composer. So in order to use it, we can say if condition the file exists and the file that we want to specify is the directory name, that is the current name, and we can say __ file. So this directory current name, we concatenate the location of our autoload file. That our autoload file is inside vendor and then autoload.php. So /vendor / autoload.php. If this file exists, we can require once, and this is gonna be the only required ones that we'll have in our entire script. So let's copy the directory name and let's say if this vendor autoload.php file exists, let's require it once. Now that we're requiring this file, we have access to the functionalities of the autoload. So we can define namespaces, and the namespaces can be defined also without the autoload. But now with the autoload, we can define a namespace and reference that file through its own namespace without requiring the actual file. So let me show you what I mean. First, let's access the backend, let's refresh. Let's activate the plugin and see if everything works. We don't have any PHP error. That's perfect. Deactivate. Always do that when you code a plugin and you're not sure that your code is not going to break anything. So now what we can do, let's tackle the activation option. So if we scroll down and we go to the activate function that we're calling here, in order to call the Alicat plugin activate, we are requiring the Alicat plugin activate.php file in the inc folder, and then we're calling the plugin with this unique name identifier. Let's say that, let's access the Alicat plugin activate, and let's say that this plugin should use the namespace inc, because this plugin is inside the inc folder, and this plugin should be simply called activate without all the shenanigans, all that super complicated name. Of course, you can name these PHP file as you want. In my case, it's going to be just inc activate. Let's save it. Let's rename the file as well as activate. So let's rename the file with activate. And this is a construction. Sorry, this is misspell. Rename activate. Okay, this is a constriction, a recommendation, a best practice that you should follow for the PSR4 convention. If you have a class with a specific name and you use the namespace to tap that class, the file should have the same exact matching name of that class. So we specify activate as a class name. The file should be called activate.php in order for the PSR4 autoload to work. Now that we have this, if we go back in the Alicat plugin.php, the main file, here we want to be able to call that unique file that we specify. So we can say right before the if statement, right after the autoload, and right after we confirm that this plugin is not getting accessed by anything else other than WordPress itself, we can say, hey, in this file, I want to use the inc backward slash, remember backward, not forward, backward slash activate. We're saying basically this use, what it does, it's requiring once that activate. But by doing this, now here scrolling down to the activate function, we can comment this out, we don't need it, and we can say just simply, hey, the activate class that we are referencing here, let's just call the static method activate. Let's save it. Let's go back in our backend and let's see if we broke something. We probably did. Let's refresh. Let's click activate. Nothing. Everything works. Plugin activated properly. If we deactivate, no PHP error. So let's do exactly the same for the deactivate. Let's go in the Alicat plugin deactivate. Let's rename this to deactivate and let's say use inc. Say also this is inside the inc. Oh, sorry. No. Namespace inc. And also this. Let's rename this file to deactivate. And then going back in the Alicat plugin here, we can do the same. Use inc activate, use inc deactivate. Let's scroll back down here where we're using this register deactivation hook. Instead of requiring this, remove, comment out the required ones, we don't need it anymore, and then simply call the class deactivate that we are already requiring and including with the use of the PHP autoload. So if we save and we go back in our backend, we refresh, nothing happens. If we deactivate, everything gets called properly and plugin properly deactivated and reactivated. That's it. You just learned how to use Composer Autoload, PHP Autoload, namespaces, and use of a class by calling the actual sort of like directory of the class that say call this activate class inside the inc, and the inc is the inc folder, but we're defining this inc global namespace by using the Composer Autoload, and we save the annoyance of using the require ones every time we need to tap a class. And this is really helpful because if we, for example, have a class here, if we zoom in inside this folder, we have our inc folder. Right now the structure is really simple. We have inc, activate, deactivate, but we have inc, and then we have a new folder called admin, And then inside the admin, we have a new file called admin pages.php. So let's access admin pages. Let's create a PHP tag, and let's create super quickly a class called admin pages. And here the construct doesn't do anything. Let's remove the argument. Just leave it deconstruct like this. Perfect. Now we have these admin pages class. In order to use this in the Alicat plugin, we should, as usual, write the same. So require once plugin directory file inc, and then we need to specify it's inside the admin folder and / is admin pages.php. This is really boring to write. It's really long, it's really annoying every time require once, include once, blah, blah, blah. Instead, what we can do, we can simply say in the admin pages, hey, this class, it's gonna have a namespace of inc and then / admin. That if you notice, inc admin is exactly the same directory that I'm here. So it's inc admin. Now that we specified this, we can say, instead of all these shenanigans, simply, hey, use the inc admin pages. All with /. Save it. Let's go back in our backend. Let's refresh. No PHP error. This is way better. This structure, the method of use, will gives us the ability to maintain our code and our folder structure way easier to read and way easier to recognize. If we know that we are using a class called admin pages inside admin inc, we already know where to look without having the require ones, without having weird names of the files that don't match the actual folders they're into, and blah, blah. Now I know that I'm inside inc admin pages.php. This is fantastic. So before next lesson, what I want you to do, I want you to use this new knowledge that you just acquired to convert all the stuff that we're doing here to generate an admin page and create a new admin page with the callback to use the template, to use namespaces and move all those methods inside the admin pages.php class, .php file with the admin pages class that we just generated. It's gonna be really interesting, and please try to succeed in doing it, and it's gonna be super awesome because you're gonna notice how it's way easier to clean up your file and maintain way more modular type of files, everything separated in smaller files that are more manageable and easier to read, and how everything will come to place pretty quickly. So it's pretty much it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes on the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and till the next lesson, as usual, happy coding.